Hello class, and thank you for watching this presentation. My name is Heather Mitchell, and my topic is on the National Security Agency. The questions are, should the NSA have more regulations on community intelligence? And what is the boundary between liberty versus national security? These are all issues that have been ongoing, especially in the wake of 9/11 and the ongoing attacks on U.S. soil. So it really forces people to think critically about how they want their privacy handled and what is need to know and right to know, so to speak. So a little bit about the National Security Agency. It's actually existed since the Truman era, although after World War I, there was some indication that wiretapping and some of those activities existed way back in 1917. Shortly after the Watergate campaign, or I should say disaster, there was a former senator named Frank Church, and he led congressional hearings regarding those practices of the NSA during the Vietnam War, because once again, their methods for obtaining information were questionable, and especially during the Vietnam War at that time, they didn't have a lot of the implementations needed as far as what the parameters were. Those hearings became known as the Church hearings, and by 1978, they had actually passed a Surveillance Act. So that's what I was just talking about before, is that as things were coming up and issues were coming up, they were having to pass more laws that regulated that type of behavior. Now, here we go since September 11th, 2001. That is really what changed the National Security Agency, meaning they no longer, I don't want to say cared, but they were no longer amused by what or how the public felt when it came to issues regarding security, especially trying to obtain intel on some of the terrorists or other terrorists that were here in the United States and what cells they were working out of. Now, there was a former NSA contractor who had leaked a significant amount of detail regarding those global programs because he had worked there for a while. His name was Edward Snowden, and we'll talk about him later, but his leaking of information was pivotal in how they conducted their business. So after September 11th hit, the Bush administration, under the Patriot Act, really gave a lot of leeway to the NSA in doing whatever they needed to do to obtain information to protect our country, so to speak. And then when Obama came in, of course, there were more changes because more issues were continuing to happen, not only on U.S. soil, but on American military installations throughout the world. So these are just some pictures of, it's titled Big Brother is Listening, and the black and whites, you kind of get a visual of how things were back in the 50s and 40s, and it was a lot different than it is now. So for my assignment, it just takes a progressive look at, what are the practices and protocol of the NSA, and really looking into, some of the public relations aspect, because just because they're a government agency, it doesn't make them immune from public opinion. And there are those opponents that feel very strongly. Edward Snowden, the former NSA contractor, was the one that I had mentioned. He really felt that their practices were not on the up and up, and that's why he made those disclosures. So in the results of the paper, the NSA had faced a significant amount of scrutiny regarding their intelligence practices, not only now currently, but for decades. But they still found that the U.S. government will take any action necessary to ensure national security, but also to preserve human life. So it's kind of one of those things, like medicine, it doesn't taste good going down, but it's good for you and it's going to help you, so to speak. That was kind of their philosophy of things. The consensus of many Americans of every gender, religious belief, and so forth has significantly changed after the terrorist attacks of 9/11. I think a lot of us were kind of naive in this sense where we felt stuff like that only happened in other countries and nothing would ever happen here on U.S. soil, and especially something of that magnitude. So that's really what changed a lot of the public opinion. This is just some of the statistics on a focus group that was done and a research that was conducted that just shows by 2013, 62% wanted some type of terrorist threat investigated, but it was only 34% felt like it did not invade their privacy. So I felt like that was pretty low numbers. And so from the Bible, Philippians, it states, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds with Christ Jesus." I think this applies to every aspect of our lives. Many of us, it's hard for us to feel or think about things that are not tangible. We're very much people that like to see things to believe it. And sometimes it's hard to put your faith and guidance in something that you just can't see. So thank you for watching this presentation.